Welcome everybody to the Authors Promo Hour. It's March 3rd already. We are whipping through Q1 of the year. And so we have lots to do, lots to cover today. I'm going to share my screen with you. And if I can just have a thumbs up when you see my screen, great. For some of you, this will be a little bit of repetition, but we are going to go through our ideas of the 3 V's, what drives book promotion, and we're going to repeat this a number of times until you can hear my voice in your sleep. That's a little scary and maybe not so playful. I don't know. Anyway, I'm Kay Wagner. Most of you know me. I'm a nonfiction and fiction author, award-winning and best-selling, president of North Star Marketing, which I ran as a full-service agency for many years, and also founder of the Bold Authors Network. I show you this chart because this is the chart for my first work of fiction when I switched from nonfiction to fiction. And these squiggly lines right here, going from here up to here, is when I started getting my act together on bold promoting and started talking to everyone, everywhere, getting reviews, getting testimonials, getting feedback, and drove the book up to sustainable sales, close to, you can see, close to the sales rank of 1. And this is the series. The series was completed. The last one, book 4, was launched on New Year's Eve. And this is Amazon being very gracious and giving me some real estate to show that I have a series of 4 books. At the time when I released book 4, it was a new release. And within the previous 60 days, I had also released book 3. So Amazon keeps tabs on everything for me. Whenever you go into a new initiative, taking on something that's brand new, for those of you who are becoming bold book promoters, you will experience this. Kelly and Connor, 2 researchers, have developed this visual of the emotional cycle of change. So when we take on new initiatives, we are actually taking on change. And we start here at a higher emotional state. It's called uninformed optimism. We are so excited. We've put our plan together. Now we are ready to launch, to execute, but we don't have all the information and the knowledge that we're going to get in just a little bit. And the information and data and feedback that we're going to get is going to drive us down into informed pessimism. I used to do tons of focus groups and a lot of market research for the brands that we worked for. And in a million years, I swear I could never forecast all of the crazy questions that were going to come from consumers and from buyers. You just don't know what's out there until you get out into the marketplace and start getting feedback. And some of that feedback will set you on your heels a little bit because you just can't predict everything. And then when that happens and you begin to realize that you're going to spend additional time, additional money, additional effort, additional energy, we sometimes go into the valley of despair. And the valley of despair is when we are at our lowest emotional state. When our energy is low, we get draggy, we maybe have restless sleep, or maybe we just sleep all the time. But the valley of despair is the perfect opportunity to get feedback from a community of like-minded people. It's the perfect time to reevaluate your vision, your values, your why. And it's not the end of the world. And so the good news that Kelly and Connor bring to us is that the valley of despair hits at our lowest point, but right before we bounce back up to informed optimism. And informed optimism is when those sales start coming in, when those clients start coming in, when we are no longer net negative, but we begin to see things turn around. And some days it just takes one comment. Some days it just takes one kind soul to give us some good feedback, to make us feel like we're validated again. And so always be that one person. Always be that encourager, because no matter how great people look on the outside, we all have some pain and suffering on the inside. And we go from informed optimism up to success and fulfillment. Success and fulfillment is not a destination, it's a part of the journey. And so we continue working. Some days I feel like I go through this whole cycle in one day. It can happen in one day, and we call that the roller coaster of emotions. But just know that this is a natural cycle. It's like a natural law. You will go through this. And so understand that the valley of despair, like other phases, is just a phase. And this is the time to ask for help. Don't quit. Ask for help, and you will get it. Let's switch gears to the formula for mastery. So getting to that success, that fulfillment of what we were doing takes some mastery. And it takes this formula, which is practice, 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 delivery, debrief equals mastery. And that requires a lot of repetition and frequency. When we are in the valley of despair, we may not want to practice, but that is exactly when we need to continue practicing. Whether that's practicing promotion, whether that's practicing your writing craft, whether that's practicing getting in front of a podcast mic as a guest, in front of people in a summit, in a virtual Zoom summit, whatever it is, we need to continue. And remember that practice goes on for quite some time. There's the theory of 10,000 hours, which says that to become a master, you really need to go through 10,000 hours of this practice. And so when we see kids like Tiger Woods, who was a champion at the age of maybe 16, 17, 18, he actually started when he was 2. Yeah. Literally 2. So we think about somebody at the age of 17 or 18 is already having, like he's just beginning his career. But Tiger, in effect, started his career when he was 2. And you see that in early, what we call prodigies, where these gifts are nurtured very early on. Not only nurtured, but usually pushed by a very aware parent. So with this formula, there's a lot of repetition and frequency. And we're going to be doing some of that repetition and frequency as we move forward as a group, as a community in the Bold Authors Network. In this journey, we have 3 V's: vision, voice, and visibility, and a bonus V, which is value. The first V is your vision. Why are you doing this? I am sure somebody's asked you that. Why are you doing this, right? It is a big deal to write a book. It is a big deal to write a series. It is a big deal to make yourself vulnerable and put yourself out there. So why are you doing that? And your vision is what will give you the tenacity, the grit, the resilience to survive during the valley of despair. Because where there is no vision, the author perishes. Where there is no vision, the bold give up. And we do not want any authors left behind. We want everyone to continue forward. The second V is your voice. And that is not only your physical voice, but your, let's call it metaphysical voice. And that has to do with your presence. How well do you fill a room? What energy level are you bringing to your presentation, to your writing, to your promoting? Are you low energy and drag everything down? Or can you rise to the occasion, whatever it may be, and feel that surge within your body? Feel that energy pulling you up. Energy, while it's intangible, can be felt. When you walk into a room where someone has presence, you can feel that presence. And we can all learn to have that kind of presence, that kind of magnetism, that kind of charisma, which is not fake, but authentic presence and energy can be learned. And we're going to learn that as well. The way we write may be an art, but our presence is our signature. So make it bold, make it clear, make it yours. And the final three, the final V is visibility. And of course, we want visibility to go up, to be increased, to expand. We want our territory, our reputation, all of that to be expanded. But visibility without value is vanity. And so as we take on this journey of bold promotion, we want to stay true to who we are, but we also want to get out of our comfort zone. We want to get out of our own backyard, our own zip code. We want to expand our presence and our visibility because we don't need to be fixed. We just need to be found. And if we're not visible, we're not viable. And so it is my deep belief that as authors who want to be bold promoters, we also need to speak. We need to get on stages. We need to be seen, not only us being seen, but our books, our communities. We need to be out there. We need to be visible. The bonus V is value. And the question that I have with value is, what is the value that you are giving to others, that people are getting from your books, that readers are finding of value? And what are you yourself? What is the value that you yourself, that you get from the work that you're doing? Because again, there's a reciprocal law of nature that is give and you shall receive. That is, put it out and it will come back to you. Maybe not in the same way, but it will come back to you. Now, I have a question for all of you, and that is, how are you adding value to your readers? And we'll see if we have time to do a breakout room in regards to this. But before we do that, I want to, with Calvin's agreement to this, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a moment. Calvin Schwartz is an author, as you all are. And so Calvin has been in, I have some people to admit here. Sorry if I get a little distracted off and on. Calvin has been in the Unlimited Laser coaching sessions, and we have had some very deep, interesting conversations. And last week, Calvin had what I would call breakthrough. Would you call it a breakthrough, Calvin?
Oh, yeah. The breakthrough that's going to tie me up for 6 months. Yeah, I call that a breakthrough.
Okay, so I bought Calvin's book, and Calvin's book is titled There's a Tortoise in My Hair. Okay, there's a tortoise in my hair. I bought his book, and I was going to see my grandkids up in Augusta, Georgia, so I had some airplane time, and I read his book over the weekend. I left a review for him, a 5-star review. The review is titled Brutal Honesty, because in his book, which is part memoir, part fiction, Calvin is brutally honest. Now, in retrospect, I would have called it bold honesty, just to stay on brand, right? But brutal honesty is how I wrote the review. And when Calvin and I got together for the first time after I'd read the book in Unlimited Laser Coaching, I told him about my reaction to the book. And here is specifically what I told Calvin. I said, in your book, you have about 4 books. He had a very wide-ranging story. And in that story, all of it, which had its ebbs and flows, its ups and downs, he was brutally honest about things in his life. I said, there are things in that book that are getting a little buried because there's such a wide ranging, there's so many themes within that book. And so we started talking about that. And we talked about different themes. And Calvin, why don't you pick it up and tell the story of the theme that we pulled out and share as much of that as you wish, as you feel comfortable.
Okay.
And then I want to talk about how that changes your audience for that book, for
Sure.
the new book.
Okay. So there's a tortoise in my hair, which got a Kirkus star. And quite frankly, I wouldn't be here with you all had I not gotten a Kirkus star. But when I got this Kirkus star, it was like a slap in the face that I have a responsibility to not just sell, 20 or 30 books and go start watching CNN. So I've been possessed. It's a great possession. Um, so Kay has illuminated me, and this time that I've spent with her and this group has illuminated me on several fronts. But so uh, she when she presented this to me, it was an aha, because there's a big portion of this. And I'll deny, if I'm ever called in front of a judge, that this is a memoir. Um, as Kirk has said, it's a rich, resonant, and vividly imagined character study. Of course, I laugh. I laugh at what Kirk has said because it wasn't vividly imagined. I did extract a whole bunch from my own personal journey, but for whatever reasons, I would deny it. But there's a lot of elements of me in that, and people who know me read it, and they're amazed by the brutal honesty with which I wrote this. But Kay said one of the chief books that is within this book, and it was such a light bulb for me. It was such an aha for me. Was my journey to become a parent, which began when I was 10 years old, sitting on, this is a picture of a jetty in the Jersey Shore. And sitting, I'm 10 years old. I was sitting there, not dreaming of playing baseball for the Yankees, but dreaming as a 10-year-old of being somebody's father. So that seed was cast when I was 10 years old. I just wanted to be a father. From where that came from, I know not, because I did not have, a great relationship with my father. Actually, it wasn't bad, it wasn't good, it was whatever it was. So I began my journey at 10 years old to become a father. And then into my second marriage, we decided it was time for children. And you start doing all the things, you get your basal thermometers, and it's a whole journey of trying to become the old-fashioned way, trying to become parents. And when nothing worked after a couple of years, then you start. I had a couple operations, to fix my plumbing. My wife had operations, and then we go plunge into it. So, and this is all interesting stuff. Why, as Kay pointed out, there are huge armies of people out there who have issues of infertility, and as we go along environmentally, we're going to have more and more of those issues. So the things, the emotions, the journey that I felt in writing this and going through that painful period. And then when everything doesn't work, then you go through in vitro fertilization, which we went through. And we lived that for 9 months at a time when in vitro fertilization was new. It was semi-experimental. It wasn't covered by insurance. I don't even think it is to this day. And then when in vitro fertilization doesn't work after a year, then you start discussing adoption. And because I needed to be a parent, that was crucial to my existence, not so much for my wife. So there is conflict, uh, a powerful conflict, a conflict that in many cases can dissolve a marriage because, that's a powerful issue. And since we were so diametrically opposed, schools of thought, to me, a child is a child is a child, in color and origin, and nothing makes any difference to me. It's a child. It's somebody to grow and watch and love. So then began, a year of debating and discussing, and getting to the precipice of a relationship, the essence and the precipice of a relationship. And all of that is documented in here, brutally honest, with tremendous amounts of emotion, because I lived it and I still live it and I feel it. And when we were near, or maybe we were near our end, as a wonderful couple who have endured so much, the light bulb goes off. One of my wife's, arguments to me was she couldn't be a stranger. She couldn't love a stranger. And I carefully pointed out to her, after thinking about that we met in a bar and we were strangers then. And guess what? We're still strangers, because to my knowledge, we never did that Native American ceremony where you cut your wrist and you put your two wrists together and you become blood brothers. That's the ultimate. We never did that. Therefore, we're still strangers, and yet we love each other. So I can't see what a child and loving a child, a stranger, is no difference than what you and I are. And we did that argument at midnight one night, and at that precipice. And the following morning, she woke up with a little glimmer in her eye. She says, "Gee, I never thought of it that way." So she went to work. She's a teacher. I went to work. I was selling eyeglasses, and she came home and said, I think you're right. And I think you're right. And this is one of the most poignant things I wrote in here, was it was so poignant. So the psychologist for in vitro used to ask my wife, "Do you want to be a mother or do you want to be pregnant?" And that's powerful. And then my wife thought about that. She wanted to be a mother. It wasn't the matter. So that then began our next part of our journey to become parents. And so that, as Kay so beautifully pointed out, is a novel, a short novel. That journey, and as I said to Kay last week in the coaching, there's so much that has happened since this was finished, because I intellectualized my son and daughter-in-law and my two grandchildren, which all happened since this was written. So this was fast stuff. They live a mile away, and it's part of my life. And then I intellectualize, and this is such a powerful thing about adoption, because as I look at my two grandchildren, and I realize there isn't one shred of genetic material there at all. But I look at them and I realize that their existence here on this earth is because of me. And the whole genetic thing, you just throw out, and you throw it out, because it doesn't mean anything. What means, and and as I said, when Kay was bringing this up, that there's a whole novel here, I said I would have loved to have added this thought, this part, the fact that I'm a grandparent. And every time I look at these children, these wonderful gifts, 3 years old and 2 years old, these wonderful gifts, when I look at that, and I realize they're here because of my quest and my dream. So Kay then dispatched me to collate and put all of this adoption stuff on a Microsoft Word document and start putting it together, because that is the foundations of a novel that deals with adoption. And that's where we're at.
Right. Thank you for that, Calvin. Thank you for being willing to be so vulnerable about your story. So as I was reading it and feeling the emotion that Calvin put behind what he wrote, and in the book, he also talks about his relationship with his son. So you see that Calvin has a Rutgers hat on, right? Calvin is like a big, big Rutgers fan, and his son, he and his son bonded over Rutgers basketball or all sports?
Football and basketball.
Football and basketball. And so he describes this really interesting relationship, this very tender relationship between them in the book, and a lot of it was they bonded over sports, Rutgers, and so there was this sense that I had from the book that their relationship was truly fulfilling what Calvin had imagined as a 10-year-old boy sitting there by the ocean. And it's so interesting to me because I also have been touched by adoption. So my 3 grandchildren are adopted. And so when I shared that with Calvin, we had this bond. And I said to Calvin, do you realize that you have a book here, a story, whether you position it as fiction or memoir in whatever way, that can reach a new audience that feels the same pain and suffering that he has felt, he and his wife have gone through, that my son and my daughter-in-law went through, that many, 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 many people go through. And so in that breakthrough moment when Calvin and I were talking this through and how to do this, it really revealed that there was a new audience for him to reach. And that he didn't have to just count on his one book to like promo for everything forever. Like he has a new story that he's already told. He just needs to fill in some of the pieces and he needs to wrap it up with the happily ever after ending. And now he has probably 75 to 85% of what he needs for a short book. Now, short books can often come out of larger books like The Tortoise Wrapped in My Hair. I think that's it. Short books can often come out of those longer books. And Amazon, if you have not noticed, the whole world and Amazon loves short books. Amazon now has a category when you publish to check if your book is shorter than a 2-hour read or a 1-hour read. And just within the last week, I think it is the Booker International Award for Translated Books. I think that's the official title. Out of the top 11 books, 10 of them were short reads. And these are literary awards. These are literary pieces. So when you begin to think about what you already have and what you've already used in a book, there may be stuff that never made it into that book that could be paired up with part from your book. This is all about the product side of publishing and the product side of authorpreneurship. But it's also done from a promotional and marketing perspective. So now Calvin has a new set of keywords to find, a new set of categories to find, a new area of real estate in Amazon to find. And I want to talk about Amazon's real estate here in a minute. But in this breakthrough moment with Calvin, it was like when I saw that he was getting, what we were talking about, and his energy level, his presence just like skyrocketed. And Calvin, do you want to share like how you felt at that moment, how you felt knowing that you had this opportunity?
It was a wow. It was a wow because in writing this, it was such a powerful thing for me. And of course, I had to include so many different things, but at the top of my list, and I felt when this got published, there was so much more I could have said, but it didn't happen yet, and the realizations. So I felt really bad about that. I mean, there were a lot of spirit, there were a lot of things, and by the way, one of the other four books is the spiritual stuff. It's like, wow, and the stuff that happens to me, and so that's another book that's really in there. The spiritual stuff, and there is no explanation. Something happened last night, and it I'll tell you real fast. It's so unbelievable. And so you've given me, it's like a new lease. This is new energy. And sitting in this chair 12 hours a day, and the energy wanes, and I'm doing my routine stuff. And I needed, that dose of adrenaline, and this is a dose of adrenaline because now I can finish the unfinished symphony, the unfinished thing. So it was and I'm a great believer that this thing that sits between our two earlobes, if you tweak it and move it and stimulate it, it just gets better and better and better. As I approach my 80th birthday, I believe solidly that I'm sharper today than I ever was, more productive, more inquisitive, more the whole package. And part of that is having, you hear about it all the time, anti-dementia is being active, having, a socialization and having things to do. So it's a healthful thing. So you've given me this dose of health, mental health, that I'm so innervated by this thought, and it's great because I can finish these stories. um, and just one of the most unbelievable things happened last night. I had interviewed this wonderful couple. Should I tell the story? No,
Um,
no, maybe
we,
not. No,
yeah, maybe not.
no.
But actually, they can go to your podcast, right?
Sure. Yep, yep. I interviewed this wonderful couple. They've been married 52 years. Uh, uh, and I actually read, they wrote a book called A Purposeful Marriage. They're a lovely, wonderful couple, 52 years. I've known her for a few years. She's amazing. Bottom line is I went last night to write a review for them because I actually, I read, it's a short book. I read it. And I noticed. I noticed that there's only three reviews. The first person to review their book was a man named Albert Ayeni, and I knew that name. As it turns out, I met an Albert Ayeni in 2016, standing outside the room for the Last Supper in Jerusalem.
Yes.
And he was wearing a Rutgers t-shirt. I was wearing a Rutgers t-shirt. So we went over and we hugged. I didn't know his name. As it turns out, he he was that person that I hugged and took a picture with in 2016. He reviewed their book. So in all the world of spirituality and synchronicity and stuff, so it's wow. I mean, it's such a wow. So now you have given me the opportunity to tell more of these stories, to
Right.
finish what's not finished, and it was there, and in a million years I would have never thought this, of course, until I met you.
And also, there are other books that you're going to pull out.
Yeah.
And one of them has to do with Rutgers, you see on his head. Now, he tells me, I don't know what the alumni society is like, but I think it's pretty big for Rutgers. So there might be a Rutgers story coming out as well.
Yep.
So just a couple of takeaways for you guys out of this breakthrough that I find so exciting. One is, don't give up on the idea of a book because maybe it's not a big, long book. Because we're getting all this feedback from the market that short books are really in. Short books are really accepted. Do you remember the day when if a book wasn't thick enough, it was considered incompetent, not worthy? It's interesting how we measure a book by its thickness, you know? And so not necessarily its writing or its ideas, although we measure it by that as well. So think about that in terms of your portfolio, in terms of your backlist that you could create. Chris, I'm looking at you right now because I bet within your book you have a couple of stories that could be expanded on and pulled out as well. The other thing is that this tees up Calvin for a series. And as I'm going to show you in a minute here, Amazon loves series. So there's that added benefit as well. The other benefit is to use content that you've already used in a new way, a new and exciting way, as you saw with Calvin. Chris says 1 Hour Reads is a brand out there. I've not heard of them, Chris, but I imagine, I just saw one the other day that was Short Book Gold Mine. So it's that same idea. So I really recommend that you put that on your list as far as creating a backlist or a portfolio for you as well. Does anybody have any questions for Calvin or any questions about the breakthrough that we've just talked about? If so, just open your mic and you can ask. If not, we'll continue on. Okay, did you raise your hand?
No.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to share my screen again and we're going to continue on. If you just give me a thumbs up. Can you see my screen? Yes, okay, thank you. Okay, so I want to spend a little bit of time, we're going to run out of time here, claiming your Amazon real estate. So in a lot of the authors that I've been talking with recently, I came to understand that many authors don't understand the depth of real estate that is on Amazon for you to claim in terms of your promotion. So Amazon is like this huge warehouse, right? And people come into Amazon and they come in. We know now that they come in at about 90%, they're looking for something specific, either a specific genre, a title, an author, and that primarily comes from word of mouth. So word of mouth is still a huge driver in the books that people select. The good news is, even though there's this huge warehouse, and when you go in there, it might feel really overwhelming when you look at the millions of books of titles that are available, is that Amazon loves you and wants you to succeed. And so as a result of Amazon's love for you, Amazon has created huge amounts of real estate. This is all of the real estate that Amazon makes available to you primarily for free. For free. I'm going to include this slide deck with the link that I send out tomorrow morning, so you can actually pull out this list and start ticking off what you have already claimed and what you need to look at to claim. But I want to just show you a couple of top level things. And I'll use my first novel, Saturday Night at the Trailer Park. All right, so let's look up here at the top. We can see at the top for Kindle, the category string that Amazon has this book in. So Kindle ebooks, literature and fiction, going to genre, specific fiction of coming of age. Now here's the interesting thing. I'm going to flip to the paperback edition. This is books, literature and fiction, genre fiction, and family saga. So just remember when you're doing your publishing that each description, each category, each set of keywords has to be done on the correct pages. Now, if we go back to the Kindle edition, Amazon wants to show you, the reader, the buyer, that you have two choices, and actually you have three. So you have a Kindle Unlimited, paperback, and Kindle Digital. Do you notice how they make this kind of small? They would prefer that you either go Kindle Unlimited or paperback. But I do have the Kindle Digital image there, or availability there as well. Now, one of the other pieces of real estate that Amazon gives you for free is this ability to read a sample, right? So the reader clicks on that, reads a couple pages, makes a decision, gives them additional information, real-time, real book information to make that decision. This piece of real estate right here is where a lot is happening. So you can see Saturday Night at the Trailer Park. I don't know when I captured this, but 256 ratings on Amazon, 169 ratings on Goodreads. When the ratings on Amazon got to about 50, I suddenly one day saw that Amazon had pulled all of Goodreads reviews and ratings into this page on Amazon. For those of you who don't know, Amazon actually owns Goodreads. And so when the book appears as though it's doing well, when it gets to about 50 reviews, it will pull over Goodreads reviews and ratings and the numbers. This helps to inform the reader that this is a good book to buy. It also shows here series readers. We have many, many series readers in the world. This is book 1 of 4, and it's called the Frankie Girl series, just in case the reader missed it down here. So this is incredibly valuable real estate because it's like someone walking into the bookstore, turning the book over and reading the description on the back. Now, here's another piece of valuable, very, very valuable real estate, and that is the author bio. And in addition is this little follow button so that your readers can click on that button and will be notified when you have a new book coming out. Now, I would love if Amazon, in all of its graciousness, would also give me that reader's email address. That would be so kind, but that's not happening. That does happen, though, in direct sales. And direct sales is going crazy. People, so many authors are going to direct sales. And we're going to be talking about that in the very near future because I'm going to try that one out. Amazon also uses some real estate right here to give some product details about your book. And this is for the reader's benefit, not just for Amazon or for you. This is for the reader. It says, okay, this is a series. This is book 1 of 4. This is how long it is. You want a shorter book, you want a longer book. A lot of people will not buy a longer book. A longer book equals a greater commitment. And as we can see now with short form books, People like a shorter book. I didn't understand this until I had a reader tell me. I said, why do you like short books? Don't you want to read a longer story? She said, no, I like short books. I like your length of book because it gives me a good story, but I get to feel like I've made an accomplishment. I've accomplished something when I read a book. And if the book is too long, it just takes me too long. I like to read a book, maybe 4 hours, maybe 4.5. So it's good to know that about your reader. Also, there will be other books. I personally think these are very, very bad choices for Amazon to put beside my book. I think this is ridiculous. These are not family sagas of the same ilk as my book. So I don't know why Amazon did that, to tell you the truth. Okay, so over here is just some logistical information, and Amazon has made it incredibly easy for us all to order books. Okay, next piece of real estate we have. So here you see we had 57 ratings, and this was when Goodreads was pulled over. The next piece of real estate is product details. And what's important for us here as authors are what our rankings are in what categories. Now, I cannot explain this for the life of me. You see me here at number 2 in women's religious fiction. I was in women's religious fiction in the top 10 for 42 weeks. For 42 weeks. And then Amazon sent me an email and they said, we're taking you out of that category because we don't think it matches your book. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? I've been selling and selling and selling books in that category. No explanation. And here I was, number 2. And what's always interesting to me, because I will go in and I will click on these categories and it will take me to these pages, best-selling pages. And I always look to see the reviews. Okay, so like here, I was book number 2 with 177 reviews. And book number 3 had 221. Book number 1 had over 1,000, 1,200. Here was one, 1,746. So we know that reviews are important, but they're not the only thing that Amazon looks at. And so if we knew why they, how they weight that, how they measure it, we would all be, millionaires. But they do keep that algorithm secret. However, this is additional real estate. To have your book come up in the top bestsellers is huge. It's a very valuable piece of real estate. So Amazon's algorithm loves series because series sell many more books and because a lot of readers love series. My series, there are 2 kinds of series. My series is a sequential series. It's best if you read them in order. Other series will have one character who goes like a detective or, a character who has different stories and each story is a standalone. So they might have 40 books in one series. But what I love about this is exactly how it appears on the page on Amazon. So they have given my entire series that real estate. And I do love them for that. And they make it so easy just to click right on the books and even go to the series page. This again is an incredibly valuable piece of real estate from Amazon that I get for free. Okay, keywords and categories. There are over 16,000 categories and probably a gazillion subcategories. These are the categories that you filter through. Here you see categories that I picked when I initially published the book. You can see the thread. This was when I was doing the Kindle books. Literature and fiction, women's fiction, contemporary. literature and fiction, genre fiction, coming of age. We saw both of those in the thread, right? So the categories worked, and they got me to number 2. They worked. And then women's fiction, religious. And these were the keywords that I used to drive, to back up, to validate. So Amazon is looking for, do your categories align with your keywords? And that's what you need to look at. And understand also that these are not written in concrete. You can change these. So if there's something that happens that is like, oh, my book would really align with that, then go in, try changing your categories. I would not wholesale change categories. I would test maybe one at a time. And again, spend some time looking at the categories, the filters, and look at all the subcategories, the subgenres underneath these categories. Now, Amazon, this is a page out of KDP. You can find this in your KDP authors page. It will give you this information. Just click through to these articles, how customers look for books. Are you available in these 3 things? Amazon by this page is telling you these things are important. Pay attention to these things. This is what our algorithm is looking at. A plus content. I have to say I have been lax on that, and that is on my, you're going to say that they don't have it anymore. No, okay.
No, I'm going to say that we've used it and we have never seen any difference. And I don't say not to use it. In fact, I recommend it, but don't have high expectations that when you put A+ content in there, that it's going to make a big change or a big difference.
I would say that its use is in validating what you already have. So using your keywords, not to stuff keywords, but using your keywords in a smart way to validate what you already have in your categories and keywords. And I think that's a good way to look at it, Yvonne.
Yeah, and I think if you have some really fantastic images like some of our authors create or we create for them, we're a visual species, so it doesn't hurt to give people images of the trailer park maybe, or images of the back of Frankie moving along. I don't, but anyways, things like that. I mean, that's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, I agree. It's just one little piece that maybe is, a piece that urges one reader. So here is this list again. And it gives you a headache. It might give you a headache. It gives me a headache. However, this is all free real estate except for the ads. And the ads are not expensive. I don't know if you guys all know that in addition to the KDP page in that section, there is another section under amazon.author.com. If you have not been to your amazon.author.com page, make sure you go and check that out. It will automatically connect you to your page through your account. It's smart like that. And that is where you can see how many followers you have. You can see other things there as well. Now, 2 opportunities that I want to give you relative to claiming Amazon's real estate. When you join Unlimited Laser Coaching for authors, that is one of the things that we look at. We use some analytical tools to look at that. And because this is so important, and because I want you guys to really claim all of your real estate, I'm going to run an April workshop, a paid workshop, minimal price, so that everyone can come in and actually, I'm going to go into my account and maybe some other people will too, and in real time, look at exactly what's happening with all of this real estate, because it's free and because it's powerful. So as we come to the end of our time together today, if you would put into the chat any rapid recall, any aha moments, any light bulb moments, breakthrough moments that you've had today, or like Valerie, you can go ahead if you have a question or a comment that you would like to share, raise your hand electronically or physically and ask your question. Okay, Valerie, go ahead.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I don't even know what KDP is, but I have a feeling that this is all for self-published authors. Is that
Mhm.
true? Okay,
Yes, this
because
is for
I am
in-house.
not self-published.
Okay.
So I don't know how.
Just be
I don't think
aware. Yeah, just be aware that even though you may be published with, are you with a traditional publisher or a hybrid publisher?
hybrid. It was
You are
hybrid.
still responsible for getting your book sold.
What's that?
You are still responsible for getting your book sold.
Yes.
And you should have access to all of that back end stuff from your hybrid publisher.
Right.
What do you mean? Like on Amazon, or I asked
Oh,
the
yeah.
publisher?
The publisher should give you access to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So should I just contact the publisher and ask about my Amazon access? Because I
Yep.
don't know any of this.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
And even before you do that, go back to your purchase page for your book
Mm-hmm.
and look at the things that we looked at today and
Okay.
start to do some analysis of the health of your book right now.
Yeah, I do look at like ranking and
Mhm.
the information that they put up and the keywords, and I'm not happy with the ranking, but the keywords are there, and it's definitely a real page, and
Mhm.
people have bought it off of Amazon.
Yeah.
So, but
Oh,
I was just wondering if this was only like if you had to publish, because I know people publish through Amazon, like with Amazon, and I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't, that this was okay for me as well, not just self-published or published with Amazon.
Right.
But
Yes.
thank you. I will.
It is. Yeah, it is appropriate for you as well. Yeah. Okay. So Tori asks, my first book was just released on Amazon. How do I get reviews? Tori, you need to ask for them. You need to ask everyone that you know for reviews. There are things that you can do. I have a reader's magnet that's called 10 free things for book promos. I'll attach it in our next email, and the email you get from me tomorrow. And that will give you some things that are specifically about getting reviews. Getting reviews is perennial work. You ask and ask and ask. And Calvin, one of Calvin's comments to me when we met and he had his breakthrough moment was that in the work that we've been doing together, that it's kind of unblocked him from asking people for reviews. Like a lot of us get blocked about that. And once you start the mindset of, I need to ask, and I'm a bold promoter, and I will ask everyone, and people saying no is not a rejection of me, it's just market data, right? So, Tori, I know that might not be the answer that you wanted, but that's the one that there are other ways to get reviews. There are ways to get paid reviews. We'll cover that in one of our sessions. There are some that are not worth the pennies, and there are others that do have validity. So I would not toss out paid reviews, toss out the baby with the bathwater in that regard. Yvonne, you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, so on the review issue, if you've had beta readers, you should be going back to them and asking them if they would review the book. And many of them are very happy to do it. They've just forgotten. It's again, Kay, exactly what you're saying. You have to kind of keep after them in a nice, polite way, continuing to thank them for everything they've done for you. But I wanted to add on to the paid reviews. We have a document that we put together of places to get paid reviews, and you're not paying for someone to write you a nice review. These are organizations that have put together a database of readers who want to read books and are willing to write reviews. And so what you're actually paying for is the time and the talent or effort that these writers will give you to write a good review. And most of them go on Amazon. Sometimes you can do a blogging book tour. And a blogging book tour has readers who will also then review your book on Instagram and Amazon. So, like Kay says, there's so many different ways, but it's up to you. You have to do it.
Right. That's exactly right. All right. I'm going to ask for 2 people just to open their mics and give me a rapid recall.
I'll go first. I really loved, Kay, the way you did the Amazon overview. I mean, we have never done that, something we probably should do, but it's so important because I just realized as you were going through all the different places and all the different parts of Amazon that most people don't know. They don't know that they're there. They don't know that they can have access to them. And I learned a couple things myself today, so really great.
Awesome. Thank you. And anyone else want to give a rapid recall moment, an aha moment? Well, I will say a rapid recall moment for me and a very sincere thank you to Calvin for sharing his story and for being willing to play in that idea of creating a new book. And for that, I would applaud you. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you guys so much. I look forward to seeing you next week. Don't forget, Unlimited Laser Coaching is where we have these breakthrough moments and people begin to pick up some momentum that is pretty sky high, expanding, going to space and blowing your world up kind of breakthroughs. And
Wait, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
And everybody else who can answer. So as far as the reviews, I mean, I've asked, it does get disappointing when friends say they'll review and then they don't. And then you ask them again, they say they will and they still don't. You get to the point where you're like, I'm not asking again. But I've had, like I was a school teacher, a reading teacher, and I did an author visit, and a lot of my colleagues that bought the book, they did give a review to Barnes and Noble because I'm actually on Barnes and Noble as well. But because Barnes and Noble just accepts any review, I guess but is it true that Amazon, it looks like you have to purchase your book from Amazon in order to leave an Amazon review, or is that false?
No, you do not have to purchase the book from Amazon, but you do have to be an Amazon purchaser. And you have to have purchased $50 from Amazon within the past year, I believe it is.
Okay.
But you do not have to buy the book from Amazon to leave a review on Amazon. As you probably have heard me say, Valerie, I give tons of books out. And
Okay.
all of those books are not what Amazon calls verified buyers.
Okay.
And I don't care if they're verified buyers or not, because I know that the world of people who reviewed on Amazon, the world of readers is way bigger than that.
Okay. So if I ask someone to leave a review on Amazon and they didn't purchase it on Amazon, it's still okay?
It's
Okay.
perfectly fine. Yeah,
All right. Thank you for that.
you
Thank
bet. You bet. Keep asking, Valerie. Keep asking.
Thank you.
You know what I've done sometimes is I'm like, so just tell me, do you know how to leave a review?
Yeah, and then you show them.
And many people will say, I've never reviewed anything, and that's what holds them back.
Yep.
And they also think it has to be a brilliant piece of writing to be a review.
Mhm.
And you can just say, you know, can you just pull your phone up? I'll show you how easy it is.
You can
And-
also, the people that have reviewed it on Barnes and Noble, they can write the same review on Amazon.
Mhm.
So copy and paste.
And they
They
can
have
go,
to do that.
they
Yes,
can go,
they have to do that.
Yeah. But okay.
but you can help them. Don't miss
All right,
the
I appreciate
opportunity to help them. All
Thank
right,
you.
everybody, it's so good to see you. Watch for the show notes. I'll have the recording and the slides in there as well. And I will see you soon. Go forward and be bold, really bold.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.